Syracuse goes into Clemson and beats the brakes off of the Tigers in this game. Like, the final score of a 13-point difference does not represent how lopsided this game was. Syracuse went in there and took it to them. They beat them. They were more physical. They clearly wanted it more. And Fran Brown outcoached Dabo Swinney in this game. And Syracuse looked like the much more prepared team on Saturday than Clemson. They go in there and how about the lower intestinal fortitude on Fran Brown to go in there, touchdown on the opening drive, surprise onside kick to steal an extra possession and go up 10-0 before it almost was 14-0. Very close to it. Angeli was cooking. They got inside the 5-yard line and couldn't punch it in, went for a field goal. Clemson didn't touch the ball till they were down 10-0. And Syracuse's defense was all over the place, forcing turnovers, a fumble, an interception. So much pressure on Cade Klubnik. Clemson's offensive line looked terrible. Syracuse coming into this game too was struggling to create pressure on opposing quarterbacks. It was not a strength of theirs. They had 3 sacks on the entire season in 3 games. And they got after Klubnik. It didn't result in a ton of sacks, but they had 32 quarterback hurries in this game.
That's crazy.
Klubnik's just really good at extending plays. And I said that the entire game while we were on the air. I was like, if Syracuse was playing pretty much any other team right now, they'd probably have like 5 sacks. But it's just Klubnik so good at extending the play that he was at least extending it, and it still never turned into much. So they were getting after it. Cuse's offense looked surgical. Steve Angeli tears his Achilles, underwent surgery today. But the good thing if you're Syracuse is you had a huge quarterback battle between a former 4-star from LSU and a former Notre Dame quarterback. And the Notre Dame guy won. You still got this 4-star from LSU.
Who had the reps with the ones in the spring.
Who was named the starting quarterback in the spring. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better situation than that if you're Syracuse, if your starting quarterback goes out, who you have in reserve. And it all comes to Jeff Collins, the offensive coordinator for them. A lot of people pointed to last year and said, oh, Kyle McCord's amazing, which he was. Of course. It doesn't happen without the quarterback. But then all of a sudden you got 4 weeks into this year, and Steve Angeli was leading the nation in passing, which Kyle McCord led the nation in passing last year. And on top of it, before he gets hurt in the second half, he made a statement in that first half. And then the first couple of drives of the second half, they went down and he threw like a 60-yard bomb over the middle to Jonte Cook. Like, he looked precise and surgical in this game. And it stinks that you lose him for the year. But I think it just goes to show that, okay, this has a lot more to do with Jeff Nixon than originally expected. He was getting talked to by the Houston Texans for an offensive coordinator position. Chose to stay at Syracuse. His son's the starting running back. His daughter's on the soccer team, a sophomore on the soccer team. Chose to stay at Syracuse. I think they find a way to make it work with Ricky Collins. Like, I think Syracuse is better than people thought, and their schedule also looks a lot lighter than it originally did. Like, who says they don't go to SMU and win? You know, the hardest game on the schedule was supposed to be at Clemson. They just won that by double digits.
Yeah. So Notre Dame, I guess, is the toughest one left, right?
And at Miami.
Oh, true. Holy
you still got to play, but you got Clemson and Tennessee out of the way and won one of them. You got Duke this week. You could beat Duke in the Dome. It's a sellout.
No question.
They should beat Duke in the Dome. You go to SMU next week. SMU's a 2-loss football team. I think you could beat SMU. After that, you play Pitt. You still got to play Boston College this year. You play at Miami. You play at Notre Dame. You play at Georgia Tech. I think you can make a serious argument that Syracuse is going to be competitive and should have a chance to win every game.
Yeah, they're a team that...
I didn't say they're going to win the game.
Right, because they are incredibly well coached. I mean, you don't see a lot of guys leave a not just a fingerprint or a palm print. They leave like a body print on a program the way Fran Brown has at Syracuse. It's like it gets you going. You know what I'm saying? Like seeing the way he acts.
He's
We said it a
different,
couple
man.
weeks. We said it a couple weeks ago, dude. Everybody that was hating on him for making his guys run sprints, I was like, I freaking love it. And what did they do? They come out and they smack Clemson. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't happen for no reason. I understand like they played Colgate the week after, but that it carries over the course of a few weeks. So I love Fran Brown. I think he's such an awesome guy to root for. He's an awesome guy to watch operate this program from afar, even though it's not a big name program. Like they're not going to get a ton of a national love. If you just pay attention to what Fran Brown does in that building, it's really cool. One last thing about Syracuse, then I'll touch on Clemson.
Yeah, and I want to touch on Clemson too. Yeah,
I agree with what you said about being competitive in every game again because of their coaching. But I am curious to see how the offense looks with Collins at quarterback, because I think you can't ask him to be the same player that Angeli was, which is in effect asking him to be the guy that kind of McCord was last year. Collins, I think, is not a pocket passer by nature, right? You want to get him moving a little bit, and Angeli has the wheels, to be fair. But like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like Angeli and Collins, Angeli won the job because he ran the offense they wanted him to.
Yeah.
Are they going to ask Collins to run the offense that way, or are they going to do this offense around Ricky and his skill set? That's going to be what's interesting for me to watch.
Yeah. The thing that, and I completely agree with what you're saying, the things that perked my interest were Fran Brown said today, he was like, people think of Ricky, because he talked to the media today with his Monday press conference. He's like, people think of Ricky as a runner first, or as running being his biggest strength. First of all, nobody's seen Ricky play because there's like no tape. You know what I mean? And he's like, Ricky's a really good passer, which is why we brought him here. He just has the additional ability to run because he's a very athletic football player. Mm-hmm. And he also said,
which is the way his boy at LSU was when he was learning under him. So you wonder if that's passed on a little bit.
Jaden Daniels, of course. And Fran said, like, basically made that statement today and he said, Ricky's going to throw the ball. Ricky is going to throw the ball was his emphasis. And a big dialogue in the spring. So Kyle McCord, for those that don't know, stuck around in the spring. Basically kept training for the NFL. Remember, he put in a waiver at one point to try and get an extra year eligibility from the NCAA. Hadn't heard back in time, withdrew it, and went to the NFL because it was running out of time to make that decision. But he was essentially a GA, view it that way, in the spring for Syracuse. And he's documented saying that there's not, like, he was very impressed with Ricky's arm talent and said there's not a throw that guy can't make. And then you finally saw a piece of it. First of all, he came in and like did what he needed to do to win that game against Clemson. Steve went out on like the second drive of the second half. Like,
after the delay.
After the delay. So Ricky played a lot of the second half of that game, right? And Ricky throws this touchdown pass. It's like a back shoulder. It's very McCord-esque. Like a back shoulder throw, puts it low in a spot where literally the only person that can possibly catch that football is his receiver. And I was like, that's a really good throw. Didn't put the ball in harm's way. Tight coverage, one-on-one in the end zone. It's either a catch or an incompletion, period. And it's a touchdown. And those are the kinds of throws McCord was talking about, that he can make all of the throws. It was a very McCord-esque type of throw out of Ricky Collins. And I think Syracuse fans looked at that and they're like, and this wasn't like a 5-yard pass. This was like a 15-yard touchdown. Syracuse fans looked at that like, okay, like this kid can throw the ball.
Right.
The kid can throw the ball. So it was also documented that it was a really close battle. Like they almost went with Ricky. So, you know, I wish it was Steve just because we have the proof that he was humming. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's talk about Clemson. This is obviously an all-time low for the Tigers. They have not started 1-3 since 2004. First of all, you hate to see it because I don't find Dabo Swinney to be unlikable. I have a ton of respect for Dabo Swinney.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've watched Syracuse lose to that team a lot. So don't get me wrong. It was elation on Saturday. It's just the most head-scratching thing I think I've ever seen. Because you could point to Florida State last year as like, okay,
but they lost everybody.
They lost everybody, and their coach had one good year. Dabo Swinney's dominated the ACC with 8 of the last 10 conference championships and 2 national titles. This is a different level of collapse.
Yeah.
And it's just so mind-boggling. Actually, I'm at a loss for words, so I'm going to let you talk.
It makes no sense. This is a team I picked to win the national championship. This is a team with 4 maybe first-round picks. One of them for the season being the quarterback, and the other 3 probably being defensive players, with another guy that's going to be a first-round pick, maybe one of the first receivers off the board in next year's draft. You said it, right? Mind-boggling. It's perplexing. You can use all of the synonyms and adjectives in the world that you want for this. It just makes no damn sense. How a team that returned all this talent that we know is good is so bad. I've seen so many people be, there's finger pointing everywhere. Different people are blaming different people, whatever. It's the coordinators. It's Tom Allen and Garrett Riley, or it's Dabo Swinney, or it's the transfer portal or lack thereof, or it's Cade Klubnik. It's really, no matter which way you look at it, a systemic failure. It's everything. Okay. They don't utilize the transfer portal. And as much as that can be a benefit, it can also be a weakness when everybody else can catch up. Syracuse utilizes the portal like nobody else in the ACC, and look at what the result was on Saturday. Okay. Cade Klubnik, I said it last week, sucks. He's just terrible. He's not the player he was last year or even the year before. He can't read defenses. He looks scared. He looks like he has no confidence, and he can't throw the ball on the run the way that he did previously. So when he does leave the pocket, it looks like a disaster. Their receiving core is banged up. Their starting running back, his credit is a converted wide receiver. And while their defensive players do stand out, you're not Myles Garrett, right? Like TJ Parker, Peter Woods are great players, but it's so hard for you to change the game completely from your position. Even though I love guys like Parker and Woods and Terrell and Sammy Brown and everything, the defense as a whole is collectively failing. And while I think it's been stronger than the offense, you can't give up whatever it was, 24 points in the first half to Syracuse at home. You can't give up 24 points in the first half to anyone at home. You are Clemson, and you have a lot of soul searching to do. Dabo is like unhinged in his press conferences. I have no idea where they go. It's crazy to think of the idea of Dabo being fired. You might lean in the direction of being persuaded to retire by the administration, so that it's kind of a clean break for both sides.
It's like, how much respect has he earned?
A ton, man. It's
8 all the conference titles and 2 national championships. You can't.
He's going to have a statue outside of Death Valley. He's going to have a statue.
Clemson is not Clemson without Dabo.
That's right.
And they're being so reactionary to what's happening now, and I get that, but I don't think there's a world where you can fire him for one year. And I get it's been a slow decline.
I also don't think he's built for this new era of collegiate athletics. You need to adapt. Look at even a program like Ohio State wasn't huge in the transfer portal previously. What happened the year after they went and splurged in the portal? They won a national championship. Oregon's doing the same thing. Penn State returned all their homegrown talent. We'll see how it plays out for them, but they haven't looked crazy impressive in the first 3 weeks. But
they went out and they added a ton of wide receivers out of the portal.
That's true, but a lot of last year's team was a lot of homegrown talent. They added those receivers because they lost all those other guys. Outside of those receivers, they hadn't really.
And that's why we said they were going to be so good. We were like, look how close they were. They couldn't catch the ball, and now they're going to be able to do that.
So Clemson is a perplexing example of just because you return X, Y, and Z doesn't really mean jack. And I think they're poorly coached. I think their quarterback is not playing at a level that can elevate anybody. In fact, it's bringing everybody down. It's a systemic failure, and I would currently be surprised if Dabo is coaching there next year. But
wow.
Again, are we waiting for the other shoe to drop here? Is this a classic case of Clemson figures it out in the middle of the year, or is it too late? Are these guys quitting on it?
1-3. You lose the locker room when things like that happen.
Yeah, I give a ton of props to Avion Terrell for wrapping his arm around Dabo when he was a little emotional, singing the alma mater after the game, wiping away the tears. I give a ton of credit to that kid. NFL GMs will like that one. I think that might have been a strategic move on his part, but I don't see how it's going to become untenable.
You know, it's bad when former Clemson players are taking to social media saying like, there's no world where Clemson football players should look unprepared. And like they didn't show up ready to play. And that's what it looked like. Like Syracuse took it to them, period.
Yes. Which should never happen. There's like 5 programs that should ever be able to do that to Clemson.
Syracuse went in there with the nation's leading passer as 17.5-point underdogs. You know what their running back did though? Okay, forget the pass game. The pass game was elite. You know what Syracuse's running back did? Yassine Willis averaged 8.6 yards a carry in the first half and had 100 yards in the first half on the ground. They bullied them. They pushed them around. Syracuse dominated the football game. Crazy.
So you think it's difficult for Clemson to fire him. What do you do?
I think he leaves and takes a different job and avoids that completely.
You think he stays coaching, or is he headed to ACC huddle?
I think
there's a world where he retires.
He's going to be the head coach at Alabama.
I would be floored if that happens. I think that would not be a good hire by Alabama, to be frank with you. Like, you need to be. You know why Saban retired? He couldn't deal with this nonsense anymore.
Yeah, he didn't want to deal with it.
Let me Coach disagree. K retired, and Roy Williams and Tony Bennett and Bruce Pearl in college basketball. All these guys, they do not want to deal with this, and I don't think Dabo wants to deal with it, and he can't keep getting away with it. So,
I think Saban would have been fine. He didn't want to deal with it.
That's right. Dabo willfully neglects it, and now he's reaping what he's sowing, and he's like, college game day doesn't sound so bad after all. So I don't think he's there next year. I think he leaves. I don't know that they fire him. I think he's persuaded. Yeah. He's pushed into retirement.
I don't think they fire him, or at least that's not how it's publicized. I agree with you there.
I do have 2 questions for you.
Yes.
Syracuse injury related.
Okay.
One, I hate to speculate on this or anything like that, but do you think the weather delay, however long it was, a couple of hours, right, for the storms, did that have an impact on the injuries that Syracuse sustained in the second half, do you think? Like, is it just it's so hard to come out and deal with that on the other side of a break?
The problem is in the first half, Angeli had a play where he tweaked his knee, right? And comes out of the weather delay with a brace on his knee. And I said on the broadcast, I said, as soon as he went down, I said, I don't want to speculate. I'm not a doctor, but I believe that's an Achilles, and here's why. Because a lot of people were like, oh, high ankle sprain, the way his foot turned. And I was like, I get it. You don't see the classic popping of the calf type of thing. And I was like, I think it's Achilles, and here's why. They say that when you have an injury somewhere, really anywhere in your body, but particularly in your legs, naturally, to compensate for that pain, if you continue to play, you're distributing your weight differently, and you're trying to avoid that pain. So you're running a little bit differently, naturally. So he's running upfield with this brace on his leg, the same leg, by the way, and he's changing the way that he's running to compensate for the injury that he had already sustained to his knee. And then in doing so, your feet are placed differently, and then boom, your Achilles is out the door. I'm sure sitting around, I'm sure they stayed loose and stuff, but I'm sure sitting around for 2 hours didn't help matters as far as your body being physically ready. And he went out pretty quick into the second half. He had a nice drive, maybe 2 drives. He went out early in the third quarter. And that was that. But I think it all stems back to the first injury, even though it's not the same body part. It stems to he was running differently to compensate.
Yeah, we see so many times a strain, like a calf. Think about Tyrese Halliburton. or Damian Lillard, right? Calf strain turns into Achilles tear when you try to play on it and mess it up. And then I'll end with this question.
Yeah.
Faking injuries, fiasco, Cade
Yes.
Klubnik complaining to the media today. Syracuse gets fined by the conference.
$25,000.
The floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, Syracuse is doing something that I do believe pretty much every team in college football does. The problem is Syracuse is horrible at doing it without getting caught. Awful. You can see so many times, particularly in the Tennessee game. I actually didn't see it a ton in the Clemson game. I think it rooted from the fact that it was happening, and I don't doubt that it was happening in the Clemson game. It just wasn't as obvious. It was happening, but it rooted from the fact that they probably were already warned once or something, because in the Tennessee game, you had a situation where Deuce Chestnut and Demetrius Samuel Jr. are both looking to the sideline. You see with the camera shot, you see the coaches saying, go down. You can read their lips, go down, and going like this. Then they both fall. And midway to the ground, Deuce Chestnut sees Demetrius Samuel on the ground and like gets back up. And then he's looking around, and everyone and the broadcasters called it out, and they're like, you got to be a little less obvious than that. So it's happening, period. Tennessee was also doing it in the game. And I think it happens across college football. Kirk Herbstreit went on a rant on game day last year about this being a problem. So it's not just Syracuse. Unfortunately, they're the first to get caught, like get fined for it. The only gripe I have with it is like your Golden Boys are 1-3 and they're complaining about it. And because of how much respect Dabo has garnered in this conference, I think that's why a fine was like assigned. I feel like if the SMU Mustangs were complaining, I don't know if a fine is assessed, but I also think it has to do with the fact that this is not Syracuse's first time in timeout. If that, even though that wasn't a conference game against Tennessee. So I think those two play into it.
I don't know that everybody does it. I see it all the time in the SEC. So in my mind, this is like one of the tricks of the trade that Fran is.
Maybe Dabo learned it from Kirby.
Yeah, I mean they both have. I mean, this is something they might have done at Georgia when Fran was there, and it's definitely something that Clemson has seen before. So like I get that sentiment. But yeah, if you're gonna do it, man, just have a code word or something. Don't say go down from the sideline. Say like apples, and then somebody goes down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Be more.
They need to be more discreet for sure, and not have two guys go down.
Right.
You got to have assignments as to who's going to be the guy going down. So, no, you can't look at that and be upset if you're Syracuse. Like, it wasn't a
hefty fine though. Hefty fine.
Yep. Hefty fine. There were some things in that game, like not to like go down a rabbit hole, but like it felt very, and I would have said it if it was Duke in the game, if it was anybody else, Louisville, whatever. Like, there's a spot in the game where Clemson's trailing, but they kind of have a chance to get back into it. Klubnik gets them inside like the 10-yard line, and it's a huge third down, and he's scrambling. Syracuse's coverage is excellent. He has nowhere to throw the ball, so he tries to take off with his legs upfield and gets blasted, right? It was like such a momentum play, like third down in the red zone, and you just got lit up. You know what I mean? And all the player did was he got up and just tapped his helmet like this and was celebrating like players do on every play. It happens every play. Anytime anybody makes a tackle, they celebrate like that, particularly a tackle for loss. And they called taunting. Automatic first down.
That was an unbelievable call.
And it's just like, how in that spot in the game are you going to call that? You could call taunting on literally every play. How are you calling that in that spot? It just, I don't like to get into like the conspiracy theories and stuff. I don't want to think it's happening, but it screamed like protecting Clemson. It just screamed that. And I was like, how do you call that in that moment? You could call taunting on every play of the football game at that point. And kudos to Fran, instead of getting on the refs, he got on the player. And he was screaming at the player like, and then the trust, that's the kind of coach Fran is, put him back in the game, and he still played phenomenal the rest of the game. Came up with a big play later. But
like I said, Extremely well coached.
Yeah. So you can't protect them forever. They're 1-3.
No, well, they can't protect themselves. So